Wireless shit show, wireless shit show, wireless shit show, wireless shit show, wireless shit show. What's up? Oh, check out who's there. Yark. Totally not take two of the intro because I screwed up the layout, but hey. How have you been, my friend?
I am doing well. As you can see, I finally got some sleep after finishing the scoring for the World Wide Wardrive. So the circles under my eyes have now receded to their usual levels. How have you been?
I've been good. I was this last weekend. I realized I was more tired than I was thinking I was tired. So most of the weekend I just slept. That's all. I watched the Olympics. I ate and then I slept. Fell asleep on the sofa. Woke up, ate, watched the Olympics, and it was just on repeat for the whole weekend. So.
And you had an Olympic level performance of your own during
thank you very much. Thank you very much. So this is a special episode of the Wireless Shit Show. It's just going to be me and Art from Wiggle catching up on this year's World Wide Wardrive event. First up, we had a change of rules this year. So unlike the previous runs where it was about a week long, this year it was 60 hours.
Yeah, and we chose that in conjunction with the good folks from the RFHackers Sanctuary. We discussed it ahead of time and basically said, who are we giving advantages to with a week-long worldwide war drive versus isn't it better to ask people to try and do it all in an amount of time that you can do without taking a week off of work, because that's who we were benefiting before, right? It's like people who could take a week off of work and then, everybody wants to take a week off of work 2 weeks later for DEFCON, and that's unreasonable. So what we thought we'd do is we'd try trimming it down to 60 hours. We staggered the start and end times by 12 hours, so everybody got equally screwed by some portion of the calendar, but at least everybody got a reasonable amount of time to get out there, and the results were super impressive. So I think we did good.
Yeah. So even on a personal note, I was seriously contemplating not competing this year. It was going to be another week because it's just like, every year, I'm fighting a heat wave. Taking a week off was a bit hard for me too, especially given the fact that, like you said, summer camp coming just around the corner. And then I saw it was 60 hours and I talked to my family and they're like, well, you're going to be gone for another weekend? I'm like, yes, like big news. I'm like, good point. So I was like, well, maybe one more last run. So I really enjoyed the 60-hour time limit this year. I think it leveled up the playing field a little bit more because I think this in previous times, if somebody had outrun you 4 days into the competition, the last 3 days catching up was going to be really hard unless you really had a good quad. With 60 hours, quad selection becomes even more important. Can you cover it within 60 hours? And whatnot. But I really enjoyed the 60-hour limit. I liked having a closer deadline that I could manage easier than working over time zones and a week long. I said, well, do I take today off and do it tomorrow, or do I do 2 days in a row, a day off and whatnot? But 60 hours, given the fact it was the weekend, it was just like, well, that's the deadline right there. So I'm just going to hit as much as I can. So, overall this year, I think we had 110 entries. Is that about
110 total? And not everybody in that list put points on the board. There were a few that I was really excited to see, but I think the cutoff was someplace around 91 people actually managed to participate, which is a pretty great participation rate, right? Like, things come up. If any given 100 friends on the planet, something's going to come up for somebody, right? Like you couldn't plan a person party and have everybody show up. So that's all right. We made one other big change this year too. We published the scoring algorithm, which if you'd been paying attention to the Wireless Shit Show, you would already have basically learned everything that was there, but we made it very explicit this year, and that was by popular demand. And I gotta say, people understood the assignment.
So I think in previous years there was always not necessarily negative rumors, but the clarity of the scoring wasn't always visible to new players. If you have done it a couple times, you understood kind of where the points would lie, and how to strategize around that. But I think for the newer players, it was always like, well, what the fuck is these foxes? What does the new ratio mean and whatnot? The scoring itself has always been the same, right?
There used to be one more
Right.
sort of leveling factor that we decided didn't make a big difference. So the first 3 years of the new World Wide Wardrive had the
Right.
same scoring algorithm, and this year and last year have had the same scoring algorithm, basically, which is just a simplification of the original. When we started this out, one of the reasons a week worked better is it was during the pandemic, and we were just looking
Right.
for something that everybody could do that could sort of bring the community together and be fun. And so people had a little more time flexibility back then, but also we really wanted people from all over the world to be able to compete. And so we worked extra hard. And this is me and Zero and Bob and Hugh all brainstorming and ideas on how to make this happen. But we worked really hard to find a way to make this as fair as possible, whether you live in the countryside and you drive everywhere and you're going to pick a big quad, or whether you live in the middle of a busy city and you're going to pick a small quad. The incentives have to sort of be the same, right? Like, we want to make sure you cover it. We want to make sure you don't cheat. And we want you to find everything, like leave no stone unturned. Now you see the algorithm, so you know what we were thinking, and you can decide for yourself whether we got it right. But I feel like we're getting close. There are still places you can register from where it's going to be really, really impossible to win. But I hope that we've leveled the playing field.
So this year, how many countries have registered? I think we had you mentioned that anything except Antarctica we had covered as far as registration goes.
Oh no, this year actually we didn't get anybody competing from Australia or Africa, which was sad. And yeah, I haven't talked to anybody from Antarctica into playing that. It's just, I mean, until penguins become Wi-Fi enabled, it's not going to be easy.
That's true. That's true.
Later in our lives,
right?
But no, we did well, and we had some pretty unusual countries. We had folks from Georgia playing this year.
Nice.
You can download the special user version of the KML from the site and check that out. But not everybody chooses to share, and we respect that.
So. Fair enough. Also, so we had a wide participation this year. Also, I think this year maybe was the fastest foxes. Somebody found their foxes the fastest ever. I mean, at least in the last 5 years, I remember.
I am not allowed to share that without permission.
Right.
But suffice to say that our number one player had a very easy time finding their foxes. Now, we've talked in the show before about how foxes are made, so that's also part of quad selection, right?
Yeah. No, I think because I was just like, wait, it's not even like a couple hours in, and somebody already. I'm like, how the hell does, like, putting points on the board is is your upload, but like finding all the foxes is effort. So I was just like, wow,
But some people had it easier than others this year, and we're still working on our fox selection algorithm. But a lot of people found all their foxes, and a lot of people got really close.
Yeah, this year I think it's the first year I found all my foxes. There was always one or two that I missed over the years, but this year I was like, finally all the fucking foxes. I was just like, I took a lot of strategy this year into selecting my quad. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience this year. So if you noticed, or I guess you would, but not all the players, because I didn't share my KML. I chose a different city that I lived in, and the reason why is that over the last years I've been competing, also throughout the years I've been participating in General Wiggle, I have outrun my neighborhood.
You've ruined the place.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see that from the past scorings that I had. Like on the first time we did the new format on DC 28, I placed 33rd. Okay, a little bit, not much of an effort. But then on the second year, I was 4th. Third year, I was 4th, and then last year I was 38th. So out of 99 players, so I was just like, I'm done. There's nothing new for this name. So this year I was like, well, if I'm going to come back, I want to make at least, and I've always wanted to be in the top 3. And fourth is the highest I've ever had ranked. So I was just like, it's only one more spot. And that kept bugging me. So that was one of my motivations this year. So I looked at the Wiggle map and I found a city that was, that's about an hour and a half down south from where I live, Shizuoka City. I picked that city as my quad this year because I saw that it had been wiggled before, but it had been wiggled what I would call tourist mode, whereas that's practically, where there's very limited coverage, but it's all concentrated in one area because that's where the tourists are. And that was around the station. And the reason why is because anybody passing on the bullet train from Tokyo down south to Osaka or Kyoto would pass through that station. So I knew if there were any foxes, they were most likely to be on that line. There was some activity down south and some activity up north where the parks are, but I was like, maybe not, but I'll hit those fine. And I also knew that Shizuoka, and I looked at Google Earth before I select my quad, and I saw that the city had a lot of residential, a lot of high rises, a lot of apartment complexes, but the elevation was pretty flat. Like literally, I looked at the topological map and I said, there is absolutely no hills, because that's one of the other issues that I have doing it on foot is that hills become dreadful after day 2, right? So I looked at the topological map. I saw it was very flat, and when I went there, it was literally flat. There was no hill that I hit this time, so it was just like straight road down this way, straight road down that way, all flat. And I was like, I can do this. I spent some time strategizing in my quad. I can show you. Let me share the screen. Let's see.
I was hoping you were going to share. I've got your contestant map up on the screen right now.
Right. So let's see. I think, that's
what you said about the Fox strategy was real good. That's right. That a few people did that, and that's
so. This is if you can look at the time scale over to the right. This is before I hit the city, so you can see that there's a concentrated line, and that's because that's where the train rides. And then if you get stuck here, then for the day, this is the northern part of where that concentration is where some of the commercial restaurants and amusement shopping area is. And then down south, it's all gridded, but it's pretty flat. This is all flat. And there's only one main road. Maybe somebody hit it a couple years back or whatnot. And then if I switch over to, this is what I walked. So I ended up walking a total of 73.7 kilometers, which is about roughly 46 miles over the course of 60 hours. Literally, though, most of it was like during the day, I would sit at the hotel, take a rest, and I would go out in the morning and at night because during the day it just got too hot. Yep. The last 3 or 4 hours before I decided to hit back to Tokyo, I did a last walk and I almost passed out. Literally, I was just like, okay, I feel woozy. This is not good. I got to the station. I got to the coffee shop. I grabbed the coffee, cold coffee, and I sat down and I could see my vision darkening and coming back, darkening and coming back. I'm like, whoa, yeah, that's a bit too close for my comfort. So
we appreciate your dedication, but we never want anybody to get hurt.
Yeah, no, that was stupid on my behalf because I was fighting high 80s, 90s degree Fahrenheit with 89 to 95, 98% humidity. So it's basically walking through a sauna all day long. Even during the night, it wasn't easy, but yeah, no. So that's what I did. So I took a strap. So basically, my quad selection was literally where I walked the edges. So if you take 4 points of this quad that I'm sharing, that's practically how I laid out my quad to traverse. Now, I did miss a lot of new spots, but this was me as I was walking. Every time I saw like an apartment complex, I would hit that road and I would make a selection of, okay, my strategy is to go one road next, but there's enough apartment complexes on this road to go straight and dedicate my walk for that portion. So, but yeah, so that was my strategy. It worked out fine. I found all my foxes. I think we had some issues with the uploads. As every year, there's always somebody coming in from the sides uploading a shit ton of data.
It started before the contest, and somebody absolutely just carpet bombed us the day before.
Hmm.
We're still catching up from that. I'm not going to name names, but I think one of our contestants had a rig that was supposed to auto upload
Yeah.
and didn't. I have not talked with this individual, but I think they found the problem and fixed it partway
Hmm.
through the contest, and they dropped 600 files going back to the beginning of the year on us. That did not that did not help.
Right.
But yeah, we got absolutely squished. However, I saw you had it up in the background there. I
Yeah.
sent you a little internal graph of number of files by day,
Yeah.
and
Let me share that for a second.
that graph basically shows Wiggle's history from day one, total number of files a day, and the weekend of the World Wide Wardrive is just a vertical line at the end. Like this is bigger than any weekend we've ever had before, period. And this was, bigger even than the Hard Hat Brigade. I hope that they'll take that as a challenge because it's meant to be.
So this is the graph you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's it. And that's pure number of files. The orange bar that says day lag, like every time you see that, files took a while to finish. They took more than the allotted, day in which they were uploaded to finish. And you see those peaks usually around system maintenance or when we're starting to hit our heads on our upload limits. But that vertical bar at the end, like it's unprecedented. Like we've never had that kind of upload traffic.
So how many new did we add this year?
Let's see. I actually pulled all this stuff up beforehand, unlike usual. Out of a total of 2,843,000 seen during the event, 2.25 mil were new.
Wow. So that's the biggest you ever had as Wiggle, as in a single or event upload wise.
That was a remarkable local maximum. I mean, one, it's wonderful that people are this into it. The sheer amount of data that accompanied that was also unprecedented. I don't have the totals for that, but we were processing more sheer bytes than ever before by a larger factor than that. And so consider last year we had, close to 200 contestants in the World Wide Wardrive, I think, but they did not upload this much data.
Yeah, I think a lot of seasoned players this year, looking at their scoring. Hold on, let me stop that for a second and switch over to something else. If you look at this year's war driving content, I think strategy-wise, I think even like the size of the quads, we see very few super large quads that we have seen in the past. And the top players all had some manageable quad with a, low starting quad Wi-Fi. I think last year's winner showed that starting quad Wi-Fi is actually an important strategic consideration element. You can't just pick any quad that's suitable, even if it's small. But like last year, I got burned by that. Last year I had somewhere close to, I don't know, a couple thousand to start with, so my new ratio was significantly lower than this year. But so I think everybody, at least the top players, are becoming even more and more attuned to quad strategy. But
yeah, and the architecture of the game is such that quad choice has to be that important, specifically because that's been our organizing metric for what's fair.
Right.
So I think it's functioning as designed. And there are people who got quads with 338 foxes in them, which is what happens when you choose an area that I've already ruined. There's too much very confirmed data.
Or I have ruined myself.
Yeah, and you're never going to get the multiple you need, and getting all your foxes is going to be hard.
The number one player, Shirime, raw score of 960 points. Is that the highest ever? Or I think last year was 1,000, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's the highest. And frankly, you put quite a dent in that. That was Shirime was a runaway winner, but I know for a fact they used a car and you didn't.
So people keep asking me, why do I war walk this thing? It's like, and I tweeted this out. It's like, I don't want this competition to become like who has the most radios and the biggest tank of gas and, and whatnot. So I want to show that somebody on foot, I mean, bicycle or whatnot, a manual could score high on the board, right? And as a personal goal of mine is that I wanted to break into the top 3. Also, and I've, over the last couple of years, I've built my rigs out. I've built multiple radio rigs. I've got them bigger, smaller. And I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to carry a phone. So I carried 3 phones this year. One noticeable addition to my phone arsenal was the Samsung S21 that I just bought because when Dark Matter was in town, we did a impromptu, unscientific, proven test of various phones. And it turns out that the Samsung Wi-Fi capture is indiscriminate about signal strength.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the other Androids that I had would actually drop a access point if it was 2 weeks saying, well, yeah, I can see it, but it's not really useful. So Samsung would just kind of log it. And that's one of the reasons why my choice was for my Samsung phone. And that paid off in the end in a way that it added a couple hundred or in the total a couple thousand that I would have missed if it was just my other phone. So
as a developer of that software, I got to say, I still carry a Samsung Flip 3 very regularly for that same reason. There is a big gap, though, between Samsung's high-end and low-end phones. You will see a huge difference in sensitivity from, I have an A10e and it's so hard to do anything with. And the Flip, though, is wonderful. I continue to endorse the Pixel line. Like, those are some of the best stumbling phones I've used personally and developed for too.
yeah.
Mostly it's a reference implementation. They don't do a lot of clever stuff that might screw it up.
But overall, I think we had a great competition this year. Any other notable quirks that you saw throughout this year's competition? Did we have another wandering fox problem, or?
We've had more wandering foxes this year than ever before. So in spite of the number of people you see with a found fox ratio of 1 on the board, which is higher than it has been in any previous year, there are also a lot of people whose foxes exited their quads by a little bit, and some that drifted quite a ways off. And we all know the story about the person who left college and went to Chicago, and that fox got found there. That's still one of my favorites of all time.
Right.
But even so, I got contacted by some folks. I think people are aware that as much as Wiggle worries about user privacy, when you decide to compete in the World Wide Wardrive, where we gather a little bit more information about you during the duration of the contest than we would normally, mostly to make sure that the contest is working right and to make sure you're not cheating, because it's a bunch of hackers at a contest.
Right.
Try stuff. But if you go too far out of your quad, we'll know. And I think people have assumed that we're harsher than we are on that. I'm pretty sure I watched somebody drive home after finishing their quad, and I'm like, well, they're way out of their quad, but they're not returning to their quad, and it's all a coherent route. I think they're going home. Right. There was another one of these situations, though, where somebody contacted me and said, oh, it was in the parking lot across the street, but I made sure not to activate my rig there because I didn't want to get dinged for cheating. I'm like, absolutely, like, definitely cover a little radius around your quad. If you're being exhaustive, one, we're not going to get worked up about a block or 5.
Right.
And we know that human beings have real lives and things that they have to do. But more than that, just because a fox was visible from inside your quad and has only been seen inside your quad at the beginning of the game doesn't mean there aren't stronger signals just over the edge. So you should check those.
Right. Did you catch any cheaters? Or
we did not.
Questionable.
I had a moment of self-doubt in the final hours of the scoring. I satisfied myself that it was not cheating, but instead that we need to the next frontier now that we've published the scoring algorithm, and I don't, I'll ask the RFHS folks and see if they agree, but I don't think we have a plan to refine that part of it very much. But what we do need to work on next year is we need higher class foxes. We need better foxes, and we've been putting in a lot of work over the last few years to
Right.
become more and more certain that your foxes are going to be in your quad. But we found some interesting loopholes this year, and we're going to have to close them.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Every year's a learning experience. It's the 5th year in the new iteration of the World Wide Wardrive, right?
Yeah, I can't believe that this has been 5 years already, but yes.
Yeah. So with that, I would like to officially announce my retirement from the World Wide Wardrive as a competitor. I scored number 2, which is fitting, giving the social, cultural reference number 2. I feel that's very fitting for me. And I don't think I have any more. Like every year, I felt like I left a little bit on the table. And, every year, even the 4th or the 38th or the 33rd finish, I'd be like, I could have done a little bit more. But this year, no, I left it all out there. I had a lot of fun. I'm obviously proud by the results, but I'm more happier about being able to accomplish the strategy that I set out to do. That's the story I wanted to tell, right? So I had great fun doing it. So
Really glad to hear that. It's got a bit of a John Henry character to it, right? Somebody with their mechanized terror cruising the streets, and you on foot in the middle of a heat wave.
yeah, that heat wave doesn't help every year, but congratulations to Shirime, number 1. Amazing performance. I would really like to know how you did it. Segfault, congratulations on your annual placing of the 3rd. I think he tweeted it out that there's an added logic to the scoring that Segfault will always be 3rd.
It's still a lot of work to be 3rd. I don't want to belittle that, but yes, he just
I was biting my nails on Spike Roach and Segfault catching me. Yeah. I was just like, because I think I ended up leaving my quad with about 4 hours left in the competition because there was a major train incident and the train started to stop. It's like, I got to get back to my house. So I'm just going to go home and see where it was. So I was just like, I was hitting my uploads. I was hitting the reload. I'm like, I'm starting at the end. I'm starting, I DM'd just like, hey, when are you going to announce the scoring? When are you going to announce the scoring? So.
And we were so far behind at that point. I think we were 3,000 files in the queue down.
Yeah.
That's an epic. That's an historic level of being.
Is that the deepest the queue has ever been at? Or
I think it's actually been deeper during. Right. There was a day when we took the trilateration system off.
Oh, right. When the whole renewing of the trilateration process went there. Yeah. Oh, the one thing I did wanted to point out, Ouroboros. I think is placed 18th, but I think they have the most found new Wi-Fi with 600,000 or something like that, some ridiculous number.
Yeah, it was crazy, and this is where quad choice comes in, right?
Right.
There was already enough known Wi-Fi there. You're taking a bet when you're choosing this quad because no one has seen something there in a little bit,
right?
Or not much has been seen there in a little bit,
right?
So you're taking a risk when you do it.
I don't see anybody with. Oh, there is. Jar Jar Binks had a 116 square kilometer quad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big quad.
I don't know if they were in the shared KML or not, but let's see. Oh, yeah, that's a really huge area. That would have been hard to do.
Oh, Cavieta had 114 square kilometer quad. That is a huge quad. But no, I think overall, another great year for the World Wide Wardriving competition. Ark, any last minute note, catch ups, messages to all the players?
My big point is I want to thank everybody for playing. It was an amazing year. I think it's the most polished, most uh, accomplished field of contestants we've had to date. And it was a huge amount of data, as you can see from how slow we got. But also, I was amazed at how great the sportsmanship was, how great this community is in general about educating and lifting one another up and supporting one another, and that is wonderful. As always, we're overwhelmed by the wonderful outpouring of support from everybody in the community, and I want to, give special thanks to the Wireless Shit Show. You guys are the glue. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And huge shout out to the RF Hackers Sanctuary. It was the Ricks that reached out 5 years ago and said, "Hey, what if we resuscitated this old contest?" And I am proud. I am proud to have continued this tradition, and I can't thank them enough for making this all happen. So it's magical. And thank you, everyone. We'll keep doing this as long as people think our crazy hobby is fun.
Yeah, now that I'm retired, you have less competition, so I don't want to see any more excuses from anybody. Like I said, if I can place number 2 with my foot and 3 phones in a heat wave, anybody with a better weather, more trained, can do even more scoring, I think. Talking about summer camp, will you be at summer camp?
We will be at Hacker Summer Camp. We'll have a smaller presence this year than in previous years, but you can always find us at the RFHS. It's going to be a new layout this year, so everybody's going to be equally lost, but we'll figure it out, and we will absolutely be there. Come see us for stickers and inside.
Will there be new Wiggle stickers for summer camp?
There are 2 new Wiggle stickers. I don't have them with me, and I'll probably be wearing our fancy new Wiggle high visibility vests. This is unfortunately, these are too expensive to just hand out like candy, but we'll figure out a way to release the pattern or something. And this is part of a long running joke, which is just. As long as you look official, you can war drive anywhere.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Always obey local laws and ordinances.
Yeah, don't get caught. Which is kind of funny because this year I always have issues with police. This year I had no issues with the police. Like, it was so hot the police weren't out. But Ark, thank you very much for dropping by. I'm gonna go edit this and I'll release it. And everybody stay safe and wiggle, and see you next year competing.
Absolutely. Take care.